guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I thought I would share with you the plants in my collection that I'm loving right now. A little disclaimer, I do love all of my plants, but these are the ones that I have been loving a little extra right now and the ones that have been getting a lot more attention as of recently. Let's get into it. Okay. So the first plant that I'm loving right now is this Hoya obovada specifically. I'm not sure if you can see, but these two leaves that came out recently, they kind of have a pink hue to them, which is so crazy because I was on Etsy recently looking at Hoya obovada and I saw one that was a little bit more expensive than your typical Hoya obovada splash. And the reason why it was a little bit more expensive is because it had a pink hue to it. So naturally, I wanted to purchase it until I checked on this plant that I've had in my bedroom window, and I've noticed that it started to turn a little bit pink. So I think that's just from sun stressing a little bit. But nevertheless, I do love it so much. I'm gonna try to insert footage of when I first potted up this propagation because it has grown so much since then. I might have a picture of it, I'm not sure, but I've definitely been loving this plant. Ever since I've noticed the pink hues, I've been keeping an eye on this plant and I haven't moved it from its spot in my bedroom. I think it's in a south-facing window, which I try to keep all of my Hoya obovadas in those windows. Hopefully, and I always say this every time I talk about an obovada, I hope I can get one of these to bloom. I honestly think if I wouldn't have chopped up the huge Hoya obovada plant that I purchased, I think last year or early this year, I honestly can't remember, but I think it would have bloomed by now because there were so many plants in that one pot and they were pretty tightly bound. So if I would have left it alone, I probably would have a bloom. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I have these now. I am happy with most of the Hoya obovada I have. Let me just show you a couple more since I'm talking about them. This is another smaller one that I have. I think I have 7 or 8 Hoya obovada and they're all putting out new leaves right now, which is so exciting. And here is another little cutie. She just put out this leaf right here. It's very silky. I love Hoya obovada. It is a very slow growing plant, but when it does grow, it's so beautiful. Moving on, the next plant is back here. And the next plant is my Cebu blue pothos. I'm currently really loving this plant because of how big it's getting. It also sits next to a south-facing window, so it gets a lot of light during the day. But look at this. If you guys have been following my channel, you know how small both of my Cebu blue pothos were. I did end up propagating the smaller one, and those propagations ended up getting tossed because they were with my mealybug-infested Baltic blue pothos propagations. What a mouthful. But yeah, I ended up tossing those, so I only have one Cebu blue pothos plant now. But I'm so happy that it's growing so beautifully. Like, I was not expecting this plant to get this long this quick. I'll try to see if I have some footage or some pictures of what this plant used to look like. But wow, look at how pretty this is. One of the most gorgeous plants, and it's so basic, but it's so pretty because it's like the nicest color blue-green that I've ever seen. And if you guys didn't know, blue is my favorite color, so anything that's tinged a little bit blue, I'll take it. I remember I wanted to stake this plant up. I was talking about having it staked up because I had seen one staked up at a plant shop and it had fenestrations, but I really like this plant hanging. My plants are definitely getting long enough to do like a hanging plant wall, which I really want to do over my TV in the living room. But yes, this is definitely one of the faves because how couldn't it be? Just one more look. Oh, so luscious, so beautiful. One more thing, this plant is in a self-watering pot, which also makes it one of my favorites because it's been a lot easier to care for. Before I had this plant in a self-watering pot, this plant did require so much water. Like, I was watering it every single day. But now that I have a water gauge and the water is being wicked up, I don't have to worry about it as much. And it makes me very happy. The next one is so exciting. So the next plant that I want to show you is my Philodendron varicosum. Only because it's putting out a new leaf, which I have shown you in previous videos. But it's finally unfurling the leaf. And look at how vibrant that red is on the back. It's so beautiful. I can't get over it. Like, I have my eye on this plant every single day because I can't get over how hairy the petiole is or how vibrant the leaf is coming out. I think if I had a dream plant collection, I would have a collection filled with Philodendron varicosum, Philodendron mammii, El Chaco red, what else? Hoya obovada, and Cebu blue pothos. They've been fairly easy plants, but this plant right here, I could watch leaves unfurl from a Philodendron varicosum all day, every day. This is one of the most beautiful things that I have seen. I mean, besides an El Chaco red leaf, this one is right up next. Those are the two most beautiful leaves I've ever seen unfurling on a plant. Like, imagine if you had a massive Philodendron varicosum, which I have seen on Instagram. I can't even imagine. I wouldn't be able to do anything else but watch the leaf unfurl. But anyways, yeah. I did just want to show you guys this because the leaf is actually coming out, and I'm so happy because in my last video I showed you guys that some of my Philodendron varicosum propagations are dying, and some of them have actually died since that video, which is very unfortunate because this is one of my favorite plants, obviously. So fuzzy, so healthy, so amazing. The next plant that I'm loving right now is my Monstera Peru. Let me stand up. Look at how beautiful this plant is. And it's actually growing. Like, look at this. New growth everywhere. The last time I showed you guys this plant, these leaves were unfurling and they've already put out new leaves. This is a plant that came with my Baltic blue pothos that was infested in my home with mealybugs. Well, not came with it, but I bought it with that plant at the same time from the same store. And low-key, I've been feeling like this plant has had mealybugs on it. I thought I saw a bug. But low-key, I thought this plant has had mealybugs on it the whole time just because it was in such close proximity to the plant that was infested. So I've been keeping an eye on it, but not really because I've been kind of scared. Mealybugs are so scary and disgusting looking. It's so funny because people who know me know that I'm terrified of bugs. They're like, how do you keep plants? But yes, this plant is actually growing. It doesn't even look the same when I potted it up. It has a lot more growth on this side. And that makes me so happy. Oh my god, look at this ginormous leaf down here. A big leaf down here. It feels so healthy and good. Oh my god. Honestly, it's because it's been really easy to care for. I've noticed several times that the reservoir has been completely dry for days, and it literally has not declined. It doesn't get droopy or anything. As you can see, this is the water gauge right now. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's barely any water in there. I think it's like up to here right now, which is not a lot of water for this huge plant, and it's not droopy at all. All of the leaves are still shiny and vibrant, and they all feel really the opposite of limp. But what's the opposite of limp? Perked up? I don't know. Firm. They do still feel very firm, so I'm not worried about watering it. Although I probably will water this plant tomorrow or sometime this week just to avoid any yellowing, but I'm really not concerned. This plant is so hardy and it's held up so well and it's growing so well. I really want to propagate this plant. I did have propagations of this plant, but I did have to throw them away because they were also on the side of the infested Baltic blue pothos, so I no longer have Monstera Peru propagations, but I definitely want to propagate it again. I think I'm going to let it hang first. Wait till it gets a little bigger before I start chopping, since I already chopped it once. And also, winter is coming, so I don't really like to propagate my plants in the winter just because they're growing a lot slower. The next plant I wanted to show you is my Fiddle leaf fig because it's growing and that makes me so happy. I always say it, but this plant started off as a stick with no leaves and it's grown into this beautiful specimen. I think it's taken 1.5 years for it to get this big, but I did propagate it in water and it started off with really small leaves, and over time the leaves have just gotten a lot bigger. And this is definitely one of my favorite plants. Every single time I see a new leaf, I need to breathe. Recently repotted this plant to get it into a bigger pot, and honestly when I did that, at the little growth point at the top, you can see it now, it's in there, it's It's like a little pink thing right there. That little thing dried up completely and I was really scared that I killed this plant, but nevertheless, a new leaf popped out and I was so excited. I think I've gotten at least 1 or 2 more leaves since I've repotted it, and now we have this little cutie coming out as well. How exciting. This is the back of that leaf, and honestly, every leaf that's come out has been bigger than the last one. So this was one leaf right here. This was the next leaf that came out. So I'm really excited to see what this leaf is gonna look like in here. I will keep you updated. Look at the back. The back looks so cool. Okay, on to the next. The next plant that I've been loving is my heartleaf Philodendron. And I think it's mostly because this plant is currently in water, and it has been for a while. I could not grow this plant. Well, I can't say I couldn't grow it in soil because as soon as I got it, I ripped it out of the soil and I transferred it to leca. And personally, that plant did not do well in leca for me. So I did end up transferring it to pond, where it did all right, but not as good as I thought it could do. So I didn't even transfer it to water. I actually propagated it from pond, and I grew these roots over the last several months. And it's doing so good in water that I refuse to pot it in any medium at this point. Because why fix it if it's not broken? There's always new growth coming out. Like, look at these little leaves at the top. There's even another little growth point there. And it puts out the healthiest looking little leaves. There's just so many growth points on this plant, and I'm really enjoying watching it grow in water. I have grown a lot of plants in water in the past, but eventually moved them to a substrate. This is the first plant that I'm considering keeping in water just because it's doing so well. I'm also thinking about moving my Monstera, or a few cuttings of my Monstera deliciosa, over to water as well, and some other easier plants that I think would do well in water, just because it's so easy. There's literally almost no maintenance. You probably should change the water, but I don't, if I'm being honest. Like, I rarely change the water unless there's an algae problem or it looks really gross. But I kind of solved the algae problem by putting the bottle into this little jar, so I don't really have to deal with algae anymore. But I love this plant. It's just so pretty and so vibrant. Wow. And last but not least, my Alocasia Jaclyn, the last plant that I've been loving the most recently, because it just put out this little baby leaf, which is a little bit concerning because it's a lot smaller than the last leaf, but it put out another leaf. So I'm very happy about that because I grew this from a little bulb. So anything I grow from something very small, I'm always excited to watch it grow because I didn't get it that way, you know? So cool. I definitely want to get some bigger bulbs so I can get some bigger leaves, as I said in the past, but wow. Can you even see? Let me see if I zoom. Let's see. Look at how freaking cute this is. I love it so much. That does bring me to the end of today's video. Give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Leave me a comment down below of which plants you're currently loving. And until my next video, bye guys.